you've got a nightmare story that you're going to share with us here. And so I like to preset the nightmare story because the nightmare story isn't about hearing about someone's bad experience. It's about learning from a nightmare story. The story happened already. You know, I've got lots of nightmare stories personally as a real estate investor. And I would say that those scenarios were the scenarios that I learned the most in my career of fixing and flipping and buying rentals. So I like hearing the nightmare story and the lesson that can be learned from it because I prefer to learn from somebody else's past mistakes if possible. So do you mind diving into the nightmare story that you have ready to share with us?
Yeah, you had asked me about that. You know, I did not come up with a story that involves my mistake, and so maybe I'll have to think about that.
Well, it doesn't have to be yours.
Because I've certainly made mistakes. But a potential nightmare that I was planning to share.
Yes.
I was in a house just a couple of months ago, and the electrical was acting a little bit funny. Now, part of the home inspection, we always take off the electric panel covers and we look at the breakers and the wiring configuration inside the panel. And when I pulled off the panel, it was like a little bolt of lightning running inside the panel.
Oh my gosh.
I had my infrared camera there with me, and I held that up, and we were at almost 600 degrees on the breaker in that panel. So
Whoa.
This was a fire just about to happen at any time.
Holy cow.
So that was a potential nightmare averted.
Yeah.
Now something more from the realm of nightmares. I had a house that I was inspecting in Cottonwood, and it had a basement apartment, and there was this hoarder hermit guy living in the basement apartment, and I went down there, and I just had to follow little trails through all his piles of things, so it was really hard to even inspect the place. But I got into the kitchen, and there was a strong musty smell down there.
Got it.
Basements sometimes have it. Got into the kitchen, and I could see that half of the kitchen was just kind of dark and not in use at all. And as the closer I got, I realized the entire half of the kitchen was not just covered in mold, but deep mold. To where
Oh my gosh.
I opened kitchen cupboards and you couldn't put anything in there because it was solid mold that had
No
filled
way.
in. I'd never seen anything like it. And the funny thing was, I put it in the report, of course.
Sure.
The owner of the place called me just furious, saying, "You have no business saying there's mold in that place. I've owned it for this many years and we've never had a problem with it." I said, "You haven't been in the basement." He said, "Well, no, but he would have told me if there was a problem." So after he finally went back to the basement, he called me back and apologized.
Oh wow.
And then, boy, another one, Brent, who works with me, had an experience where somebody had a slab, a basement slab, or not a basement, a slab on grade house, meaning a house that's built on a concrete slab.
Yeah.
And somebody thought it was a good idea to dig a basement underneath it.
Oh.
And so,
Oh no.
so underneath this concrete slab, which isn't reinforced by, it was an old slab. A newer one would be stronger, but even still not intended to have hollow space underneath.
Right.
And so in this case, this was a house that would have probably caved in eventually.
Oh my gosh.
And then boy, I had another house in Salt Lake near the Capitol, old historic home that looked really cool and so I was excited about. I got in the attic, and somehow the rafters had all broken and the whole roof had shifted.
Oh my gosh.
To where it was just kind of resting in place, but nothing was tying it on, and it was not in its original position.
Whoa. Wow. That's crazy. Was the house that was on slab, did that end up caving down?
Well, the buyers backed out. And
Okay.
I don't know the rest of the story. We give the report to the realtor, and the sellers maybe hopefully they gave it to the sellers and said, you probably need to do something about this.
Right. How big was this hole that they'd already started digging?
It was largely under the entire
Holy cow.
house.
Wow.
It hadn't cracked and broken yet, but it would.
Yeah.
It would eventually, and the floor would just cave right in.
Oh my gosh. Because there was a house, I want to say 2018 or early 2019 in South Salt Lake that caved in. Did you hear about that?
No, I don't recall.
It was on KSL. It made the rounds through all my real estate investor friends. I think it was on KUTV or KSL. Did the news story on it, and then someone posted it, and then it got shared amongst all of us. And same thing. It was a flip. Investor bought it and was digging out the basement. And I don't know the whole story, but the house fell down. And luckily, no one was in it. It fell down overnight. I guess it just weakened the home, the structure to a point, and then it caved down.
We do a lot of inspecting in old houses, and so you have a lot of these old houses that have a shallow foundation, never intended to have a basement.
Right.
And so people want a basement. They'll dig out the middle, and this is why you have a shelf basement sometimes, because you have to leave enough soil around the perimeter to support the original foundation. If you dig away too close to the original foundation, then absolutely. And that's something we find quite often with old houses, is when people have compromised the foundation by digging the basement too close to the original foundation.
Gotcha. So is every shelf basement then, just random curious question, I don't know a ton about construction as far as like why someone would do a shelf basement other than what you just said. Is every shelf basement because somebody essentially wanted to make a basement, or was that a thing in the day to have a shelf basement?
Well, a lot of times you had a cellar under a house where they would dig out somewhere not too close to the foundation.
Okay.
But then in many cases they expanded that to make a larger basement.
Oh, sure.
Which is okay, that you've got one or more central beams going under the floors, that if you're digging out, removing the soil, of course you've got to put new posts in to support the inner structure.
Mm-hmm.
But it can be done. But then, yes, as you move toward as you spread toward the foundation, you've got to leave enough soil, and then put some kind of a retaining wall to hold up the soil so that you don't jeopardize the original footings and foundation. And that's another mistake that we see a lot, is people dig away, but then it's just raw soil, where if you had a sprinkler break or a pipe burst that could erode the soil away, then it could very quickly compromise your foundation.
Wow. That house alone that you just talked about is all I need to hear. Like, if I was someone wondering, do I need a home inspection? That story right there is all I would need. I'm going to start telling that story. Yeah, excellent. Well, it's time for a commercial break. When we come back, we are going to be dissecting more questions and asking Neil all sorts of stuff, like kind of what happens through the step-by-step of a home inspection. We'll also be asking him, about other things that people get inspected. You hear about people testing for meth, radon, etc. So we'll be diving into that. So you're not going to want to go anywhere, because meth is a pretty big topic that's scary for a lot of people, and a lot of people test, a lot of people don't. So I'm going to want to hear your opinion on like what you find the ratio is of do's and don'ts as far as people that do it. And so you're going to want to hear what Neil has to say when we get back from a commercial break. So stay tuned. With smartphones and technology making life a little easier, the Snap Leash has also been designed to make life a little easier for you and your pup. Whether you're out on a stroll in the park, or possibly a walk through the city, or maybe even a hike up in the mountains, the Snap Leash is the perfect leash for you. The Snap Leash can easily and conveniently convert into 7 types of leashes, making the Snap Leash the most convenient leash in the world. What other leash do you know that is 7 leashes in one? With the Snap Leash having appearances on the Today Show in New York City, TV 47 in Dallas, Texas, and ABC 4 on Midday, Utah, you are definitely going to want to take a peek at what the Snap Leash can do for you and your best friend. Make life a little easier for you and your pup, and visit www.snapleash.com today.